Soldier's astonishing confession leaves pregnant widow speechless. The colony was quiet when Elias Kane stepped off the transport shuttle. The airlock hissed open, letting in a soft, sterile breeze that smelled faintly of metal and recycled oxygen. 10 years. 10 long years he had been gone, fighting wars that no one truly understood. Wars that were whispered about in the council halls and celebrated in stories only half true. Now standing on the landing platform, Elias felt the familiar ache of home, strange, quiet, and almost alien in its normalcy. He looked across the colony's central square. Small domed habitats glimmered under the pale light of the planet's twin suns. Children ran through the open spaces, laughing at games he didn't recognize. Merchants shouted their daily announcements, selling nutrient packs, water purifiers, and trinkets from other settlements. The sight made him ache. The world seemed so ordinary, yet it had waited for him just as everyone had. Elias adjusted the strap of his pack and began walking. His boots echoed softly against the polished metal of the walkway. Each step carried memories he had long buried. Memories of fire and smoke, of alien skies lit with strange, distant stars. Memories of men and women he had called comrades, now nothing more than names in reports. He paused at the edge of the square and saw her. Lyra, his Lyra. The woman who had waited, prayed, and survived all those years without him. Her hair was longer than he remembered, tied back in a braid that fell over one shoulder. Her eyes, sharp and green, seemed both older and softer, carrying the weight of loss he had never imagined. And yet she carried herself with dignity, even as a small rounded belly hinted at the child she bore. Elia's heart caught in his chest. He had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in his mind, and each rehearsal ended the same way, with silence, with her turning away, or with words he was too afraid to speak. But now, standing before her, reality felt heavier, more urgent. Lyra saw him too, her lips parting in surprise. For a moment time seemed suspended. Children ran past, merchants shouted, the twin suns rose higher, but none of it mattered. Elias and Lyra were frozen, caught in the fragile web of the past and present. Elias, she said finally, her voice soft but steady. Lyra, he replied, his voice low, carrying the weight of a decade. He stepped closer, careful to keep his distance. There was a tension between them, a mixture of fear, hope, and uncertainty. 10 years of separation could not be undone with a single word or a single glance. Lyra's hands rested on her belly, almost instinctively protective. Elias noticed and paused. The child, their child. He had imagined this moment many times, wondering if he would ever meet the little life that was, in part, his own. Yet the reality made him hesitate. How could he explain what he had done, what he had seen, what he had endured? I didn't expect you back so soon, Lyra said. There was a flicker of emotion in her eyes, relief, suspicion, and something else he couldn't place. I didn't expect to come back this way either, Elias admitted. His voice was quiet but steady. But there's something I need to tell you, something important. Lyra's brow furrowed. Important? What could be so important after all this time? Elias swallowed hard. The words were heavy, and each one carried the weight of a lifetime. I wasn't just fighting on the front lines. There were missions, secret missions, things the council didn't want anyone to know about. I can't. He stopped, searching her eyes, hoping for understanding. I can't hide it anymore. Lyra's expression shifted from suspicion to curiosity. She stepped closer, though still cautious. Then tell me everything, Elias. He nodded and gestured toward the observatory, a glass-domed structure at the edge of the colony overlooking the glowing nebula that marked the horizon. It was quiet there, private, and allowed for the kind of conversation that the colony's busy square could never contain. As they walked, Elias thought of the years spent in hiding, in secrecy, in battles that no one would ever truly understand. He remembered the alien worlds he had seen, the strange civilizations that had tested humanity in ways no training could prepare for. And he remembered the missions that had changed him, that had changed the very course of his life, and perhaps the life growing inside Lyra. Inside the observatory, the light was softer. The twin suns' rays filtered through the glass, casting long shadows across the polished floor. The nebula beyond shimmered in hues of blue and violet, a cosmic dance that seemed to mock the stillness of human life below. Elias turned to Lyra. There's no easy way to say this, he began. What I'm about to tell you, it will sound impossible, unbelievable, but it's the truth. I need you to hear it. Lyra's hands tightened around her belly. She nodded, her expression steady but wary. I'm listening. Elias took a deep breath, memories flooding back like waves. During the last phase of the war, I was part of a special unit, a mission so secret no one outside the command knew we existed. We weren't just fighting battles, we were experimenting. Enhancing humans, preparing us for threats that were coming, threats the Council never told the public about. We encountered alien technology, life forms beyond our understanding, and we used what we learned to improve human resilience, intelligence, and survival instincts. Lyra blinked, her mouth opening slightly. You mean humans were changed, experimented on? Elias nodded slowly. Yes, and that's not all. Lyra, our child, is part of this. The enhancements, some of them at least, are already present in your baby. The Council's project, it wasn't just about winning a war, it was about ensuring humanity's future. Lyra's breath caught. She took a step back, unsure whether to feel fear, awe, or anger. You're saying our baby is special? Yes, Elias said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Special in ways we don't fully understand yet. Stronger, smarter, able to survive things ordinary humans couldn't. And it's because of what I did, because of what I was tasked with. Lyra sank into one of the chairs, resting her hands over her belly as if to shield the child from the enormity of the revelation. Why didn't anyone tell me? Why didn't you come back sooner? Elias knelt beside her, placing a hand over hers. I couldn't. The mission required secrecy, even from those I loved. I thought I would never return, and if I did, I needed to know you and the child would be safe first. That's why I waited. That's why I came back now. Lyra's eyes glistened with unshed tears. You've carried this all this time alone? Elias nodded. I had to. It was the only way to protect you. And now, I can't protect you by hiding the truth anymore. You deserve to know. Our child deserves to know one day what we were, what humanity can become. The observatory was silent for a long moment. Outside, the nebula swirled in quiet majesty, indifferent to human struggles and secrets. Lyra looked at Elias, searching his eyes for signs of deceit, signs of failure, signs of the man she had loved. What she found instead was resolve, honesty, and something she had not expected, hope. I don't know what to say, Lyra admitted softly. Then don't say anything, Elias replied. Just understand we have a responsibility now. Not just to ourselves, but to our child, to humanity. The work I did, the things I've seen, they weren't for glory, they were for survival. And survival is the only thing that matters now. Lyra nodded slowly. Survival and hope. Elias allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. Yes, hope, and I promise I will stay. I will not leave again, not until our child is safe, not until humanity has a fighting chance. For the first time in 10 years, Lyra believed him. She felt the weight of her fear lift slightly, replaced by a cautious optimism. There were challenges ahead, dangers beyond their imagination, but for the first time she felt she would not face them alone. As the suns dipped lower in the sky, casting a soft golden glow across the observatory, Elias and Lyra sat together in silence. Words were no longer necessary. The bond that had survived war, separation, and secrets was stronger than ever. Outside, the colony continued its life, unaware of the conversation that had just occurred. Children laughed, merchants shouted, and humans went about their ordinary lives. But within the observatory, two people knew that the extraordinary was coming. Humanity's next chapter was beginning, and they were at the center of it. Elias reached for Lyra's hand, and she took it. For the first time, they allowed themselves to imagine a future together. A future filled with unknown dangers, yes, but also with possibilities beyond imagination. And somewhere in that future, a child was growing, a child who would change everything. And for the first time in years, Elias felt at peace. The observatory fell silent after their conversation, but outside, the colony thrived with its ordinary rhythm. Elias stayed close to Lyra, walking her back to her small home among the cluster of domed habitats. The streets hummed with life, children laughing as they played with solar drones, merchants calling out for customers, and the soft hum of machinery that kept the settlement alive. For a moment, Elias felt a strange comfort in the ordinary, a reminder that despite the war, humanity endured. Lyra entered her home and moved toward the chair she had set up by the window. She rested her hands on her belly, staring out at the distant nebula. The glow of the stars reflected in her eyes, but there was still confusion there, a mix of awe and fear. Elias followed, standing near the door as if unsure whether he was allowed to be there. I can't believe it, Lyra whispered. All this time, everything I thought I knew, it's only part of the truth. Elias stepped closer. I know, I wanted to tell you before, but the mission didn't allow it. Even if I had tried, the council would have stopped me. They guard secrets like life itself. And some of those secrets were about us, about the child. Lyra turned to face him. The child, the enhancements, what does it mean exactly? What did they do? Elias took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. The project wasn't simple. They weren't just trying to make humans stronger. They were trying to make humans adaptable, able to survive environments that are hostile, intelligent enough to outthink enemies, even capable of resisting certain diseases or biological attacks. And your baby, your child, has inherited some of these changes already. It's small, almost imperceptible now, but it will grow. Lyra sank into the chair, resting her hands over her stomach. So our child isn't ordinary? You're saying it's different? Yes, Elias said, his voice steady. But different isn't bad, it's necessary. The universe isn't safe. Humans aren't safe unless we evolve. The aliens we encountered, they're more advanced than anything we've faced. Without these changes, we wouldn't stand a chance. Lyra's brow furrowed. Aliens, advanced ones, what exactly did you see, Elias? He nodded, knowing that the story would sound unbelievable, even impossible. We were sent to explore the edge of the galaxy beyond the colonies. There, we encountered life forms unlike anything humans had imagined. They weren't hostile at first, but intelligent. And they had technology that could alter life itself. Our mission was to study it, and if possible, bring it back to help humanity. We didn't just fight battles out there, we adapted ourselves. We became something more than soldiers. Lyra's eyes widened. You changed humans? You mean like experiments? Elias shook his head. Not experiments in the way you think. We weren't playing God. We were preparing humanity to survive. War wasn't the only threat. Disease, environmental collapse, cosmic radiation. The universe doesn't care if humans are ready. It only cares that we survive. Lyra's hands tightened on her belly. And our child is part of this preparation. Yes, Elias said. Part of the first generation to carry the future in them. And I wanted to see you, wanted to tell you before the council controlled it any further. Before anyone else decided your child's destiny for you. Lyra stayed silent, the weight of his words settling over her. She stared at her unborn child, imagining the life that might be waiting. Could a baby survive alien worlds? Could a child really carry the hopes of humanity? She didn't know, and the thought both terrified and inspired her. I need time, she said finally. Time to think, to understand all this. It's too much. Elias nodded. I understand. I just wanted you to know. You deserve to know. And I'll stay here with you every step of the way. We can face this together. Days passed, and life in the colony continued. Elias resumed small duties assigned to returning soldiers, helping repair colony machinery and assist with supply transports. But each night, he and Lyra spoke at length, and slowly she began to accept the reality of the secret mission. She asked questions about the aliens, about the technology, about the enhancements, and Elias answered with honesty, leaving nothing out. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Elias took Lyra to the edge of the colony, to a quiet ridge overlooking the plains below. He wanted her to see the beauty of the planet, to remind her that the universe wasn't just danger. It was vast and full of possibility. Look at it, he said softly. All of this, humans made it here, built lives where none should exist. We survive, we adapt. That's what they don't understand. That's what makes us strong. Lyra watched the horizon. The plains stretched endlessly, dotted with small settlements and distant transport vehicles. The nebula glowed faintly in the sky, a swirling mass of light and shadow. Humans, surviving, adapting, she repeated. You really believe we can face what's out there? Elias smiled, though it was a faint, serious smile. I don't just believe it, I've seen it. Humans can endure things no other species could, and soon, our child will be part of that strength. Humanity doesn't just fight for survival. Humanity fights to thrive, to grow, to reach further than we ever imagined. Lyra's heart swelled with a strange mixture of pride and fear. She reached for Elia's hand. And if they come, the aliens you spoke of, then we'll be ready, he said, squeezing her hand. We won't wait for them to attack. We'll meet them on our own terms, and we won't face it alone. Night fell over the colony, and the stars appeared like scattered diamonds across the dark sky. Elias and Lyra sat together, holding hands, listening to the quiet hum of life below. Despite the secrets, the wars, and the impossible truths, a fragile sense of hope had settled between them. Weeks turned into months. The colony received new transmissions from Earth Command, updating them on interstellar developments. Supplies arrived sporadically, bringing news of other human settlements and whispers of alien sightings. Elias trained in secret, testing simulations designed to prepare humans for environments beyond the planets they knew. Lyra studied the theories of human adaptation, trying to understand the changes that had been made and what they might mean for their child. One evening, a young scout named Mara approached Elias with a worried expression. "Captain Kane," she said, "we've detected unusual energy signatures in the outer sector. They don't match any known human technology." Elias' eyes narrowed. He had seen this before, strange readings that hinted at alien presence. "Show me," he said. Mara led him to a small console. The display showed irregular pulses of energy moving slowly across the sector, almost like a heartbeat. Elias studied the data, recognizing patterns he had learned to see in the war. These signatures were intelligent, calculated, alive. "Aliens," he muttered, his jaw tightening. "They're close." Lyra, standing behind him, felt a chill run down her spine. She had accepted the secret, the enhancements, and the possibility of threats. But now the threat felt real, tangible, immediate. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice small. "We prepare," Elias said firmly. "We can't ignore it. Humanity has survived because we face challenges head-on. We adapt, we fight, and we endure. Our child, our future, depends on it." The weeks that followed were a blur of preparation. The colony mobilized quietly, training in combat simulations, studying alien patterns, and enhancing defenses. Elias worked tirelessly, often late into the night, coordinating efforts with other returning soldiers. Lyra assisted as much as she could, learning quickly, her mind sharp and attentive. Together, they became a small, formidable team. During a quiet night, Lyra approached Elias while he was reviewing data. "Do you ever wonder if we're doing the right thing?" she asked. Elias looked up, his expression thoughtful. "Every day, but I also know that doing nothing isn't an option. Humanity doesn't wait. We survive or we vanish. Our choice is clear." Lyra nodded, understanding, though her heart still ached at the weight of their situation. She rested her hand on her belly, feeling the small, yet growing presence of life that carried the promise of humanity's future. Months passed. The energy signatures in the outer sector grew stronger, more frequent. Scouts reported brief encounters with unknown ships, moving fast, intelligent, and cautious. The colony's defenses improved, but the unease never left Elias' mind. He knew what was coming. He had seen this before. One evening, as the twin suns set, Lyra and Elias stood together at the edge of the ridge once more. The nebula glowed softly, and the first signs of alien ships appeared in the distance, faint outlines against the stars. "They're coming," Elias whispered. Lyra gripped his hand tightly. "Then we'll face them together." Elias nodded, looking out at the horizon. The war had ended for him years ago, but the fight for humanity's survival was only beginning. And as he glanced down at Lyra's belly, he knew that the future of their child, and the future of humanity, depended on every choice he would make next. And in that quiet, starlit moment, hope burned brighter than fear, and the promise of humanity's resilience shone like the stars above. The night was cold and quiet, the twin moons casting pale light across the colony. Elias and Lyra stood in the observatory, looking out at the distant nebula and the faint glimmer of alien ships that had been observed for weeks. The energy readings were increasing, and the scouts' reports were becoming more urgent. The signs were clear. Something was moving in the outer reaches of the system, intelligent and deliberate. Lyra's hands rested on her belly, feeling the subtle movements of their child. The life inside her was a constant reminder of what was at stake. "Elias," she said softly, "I can feel it moving, it's strong. Do you think it will survive?" Elias glanced at her, seeing both worry and hope in her eyes. He knelt beside her, placing his hand over hers. "It will survive," he said firmly. "It's not just any child. It carries what humanity needs to face what's coming, but it won't be easy. Nothing worth surviving ever is." Lyra looked down, her mind racing. She had accepted the truth about Elias' mission, the enhancements, the alien threat, but hearing it again, spoken with certainty, made her stomach tighten. "I want to understand everything," she whispered. "Tell me everything, Elias. I need to know what we're facing and why our child is special." Elias nodded. He took a deep breath, knowing that once he began, there would be no turning back. During the final stages of the war, I was assigned to a covert program called Project Sentinel. Its purpose was simple in words but complex in reality: ensure humanity's survival, not just survive war, but survive any threat the universe could throw at us. Lyra's eyes widened. Any threat? You mean beyond aliens? Yes, Elias said. Cosmic radiation, deadly viruses, harsh planets. Humanity is fragile, and Project Sentinel was designed to make us stronger, smarter, and adaptable. We used alien technology discovered during the mission to accelerate genetic evolution. Soldiers were enhanced, yes, but the most important part, the next generation, that's where our child comes in. Lyra's fingers trembled slightly as she traced the shape of her belly. So, our child is part of this experiment? Elias held her hands firmly. Not an experiment. A step forward. The changes are subtle now, but they will grow. Intelligence, resilience, instinctive understanding of threats, all these traits are already developing, and it's why I returned now. I needed to protect you and the child before the council could interfere. Lyra's breath hitched. I don't know if I can accept it. It feels overwhelming. You don't have to accept it immediately, Elias said gently. I know it's a lot to take in, but what matters is that you understand the truth. Nothing I've done, nothing we will do is meant to harm. Everything is meant to ensure survival. Lyra looked out at the stars, thinking about the life growing inside her and the immense responsibility now resting on her shoulders. Elias, what if the aliens we've detected, they come here? Can we fight them? Elias' jaw tightened. We can. Humanity fights with intelligence, resilience, and ingenuity. The Council knows it, I know it, and now you know it too. But our survival will not come from ordinary means. Our child, the first of the new generation, represents a future where humanity will endure. Lyra's mind spun with questions, doubts, and fears. And the soldiers you mentioned, were they enhanced too? Yes, Elias admitted. Many of us received enhancements to resist harsh conditions, to think faster, to survive situations that would kill ordinary humans. Some changes were physical, some mental. And those who survived, they carry the knowledge of the mission and the memory of what is coming. Lyra rested her forehead against his chest, feeling the warmth and strength of the man who had returned to her. I don't know if I can do this alone, she said quietly. You won't, Elias replied firmly. I'm here, I'll stay, and the council, they won't interfere. Not if I can help it. You and our child are safe as long as we prepare, as long as we remain vigilant. But we have to face the truth, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who comes after. Over the following days, Elias began to train Lyra in the fundamentals of survival beyond the colony. They practiced simulations of alien attacks, learned strategies to use their environment, and studied the subtle patterns of energy the scouts had reported. Lyra absorbed it all with determination, though each lesson reminded her of the danger looming just beyond the stars. One afternoon, while examining energy data, Elias noticed something alarming. The signals were not just approaching, they were organizing. Patterns of movement suggested intelligence, coordination. Lyra, he said, pointing at the screen, they're planning. Whoever or whatever they are, they're moving with purpose. This isn't random exploration, it's deliberate, and soon we may be their target. Lyra's face paled, but she steadied herself. Then we must be ready. We have to make sure our child, our future, survives. Elias nodded. Exactly, and that's why Project Sentinel matters. Ordinary humans would have no chance. But humans with the enhancements, humans who understand their strength, their resilience, we have a chance. And our child will lead the way. That night, as the colony rested, Elias shared more details of the mission with Lyra. He told her about the alien species, their intelligence, their technology, and their unknown intentions. He explained the enhancements in detail, how they worked, how they would manifest over time, and how their child was already showing early signs of adaptation. Lyra listened wide-eyed, absorbing every word. It's a lot to take in, she whispered, but I think I understand. I see why you had to return. I see why you had to tell me. Elias took her hands in his, squeezing them gently. We are part of something larger than ourselves, Lyra. Humanity is on the edge of something extraordinary. And you, our child, you are central to it. That's why I came back. That's why I survived. Lyra rested against him, letting the weight of the truth sink in. She was no longer just a widow waiting for news. She was part of the future. She would carry the child, guide it, and protect it. And with Elias by her side, she believed that survival was possible. Days turned into weeks. The energy signals grew stronger, and scouts reported more frequent sightings of the alien vessels. The colony began to take measures to fortify its defenses. Training sessions became more intense, and the community slowly learned to understand the threat without panicking. Lyra discovered that the child she carried was developing rapidly. Even in its early stages, subtle signs of the enhancements were visible. Reflexes, awareness, even minor instinctive movements hinted at what Elias had said. She could feel the strength growing inside her, and with it came determination. She would protect this child, no matter the cost. One evening, Elias and Lyra returned to the observatory to monitor the energy readings. The aliens' movement had become more coordinated, almost like a pattern that could be deciphered. Elias studied it, his mind racing. They're intelligent, they're calculating, but they are not invincible. Humans can adapt, humans can endure, and we will prove it. Lyra watched him, all mingling with fear. You really believe that? I don't just believe it, Elias said, his eyes fixed on the distant lights. I know it. Humans have survived countless challenges. We've endured famine, disease, war, and we've thrived. Now we face the unknown, and we will survive it too, for our child, for the generations to come, for humanity. As the moons rose higher in the sky, Elias placed a hand on Lyra's belly. Our child will be the first of many. The first to carry the strength, intelligence, and resilience needed to face what's out there. And we will protect it no matter what. Lyra nodded, feeling a mixture of fear, pride, and determination. She understood the stakes. She understood the responsibility. And she understood that ordinary life was over. Humanity was stepping into a new era, and they were at the forefront. In the quiet of the observatory, with the stars glowing like distant fires, Lyra and Elias made a silent vow. They would face the future together. They would protect their child and ensure humanity's survival. And when the day came that the aliens arrived, humanity would not be waiting helpless. They would meet the threat with intelligence, resilience, and courage. For the first time since Elias returned, the weight of the secret no longer felt unbearable. The truth was heavy, yes, but it also carried power, hope, and a purpose beyond anything they had imagined. And as Lyra rested her hand on her belly, she could feel the quiet strength of life inside her, a strength that would shape the destiny of humanity. Outside, the alien vessels moved silently through space, their purpose unknown, their intelligence evident. But inside the colony, humans were no longer ordinary. They were aware, prepared, and growing stronger with each passing day. And the child within Lyra, small, unseen, and miraculous, would be the spark that ensured humanity endured. Elias and Lyra watched the nebula together, the colors shifting like flames in the dark. The future was uncertain, the threats immense, but hope burned brightly. And as they held each other close, they knew that whatever came next, humanity would not just survive. It would rise. The colony woke to an unusual calm. The twin suns were rising, casting long shadows across the domed habitats, but beneath the surface, the tension was thick. Scouts had reported increased alien activity near the outer edges of the sector. The signals were no longer faint pulses. They had become precise, coordinated, almost like a heartbeat of a vast and intelligent organism. Elias rose early and went straight to the observatory. He stared at the readings, his jaw tight, his mind racing. Every pattern, every movement told him one thing: the aliens were planning something. They weren't exploring, they were preparing. The colony was no longer just a settlement, it was a potential battlefield. Lyra joined him, her hands resting on her belly. She had grown stronger in the past months, absorbing Elias' lessons, learning to understand the alien patterns, and accepting the truth of the enhancements inside her child. But the tension of the approaching threat weighed heavily on her. They're closer, Elias said quietly, pointing to the screen. The signals, they're converging here toward the colony. They know something is here, something worth observing or eliminating. Lyra swallowed hard. Then we have to act. What do we do first? We prepare, Elias said firmly. The council will coordinate defenses, but I want the colony ready for anything. Shields, energy grids, evacuation plans, and everyone must be trained in survival. No one can be unprepared, not even for a moment. The day passed in a blur of activity. Technicians checked energy grids, engineers reinforced the outer walls, and citizens of the colony learned to operate basic defense protocols. Children were moved to safe areas, while the adults trained in small squads, practicing emergency maneuvers and simulations of alien attacks. Elias moved among them, observing, guiding, and instructing. His experience on the front lines, his knowledge of alien technology, and the secret enhancements he carried made him a figure of authority and reassurance. Yet even he could feel the weight of the unknown pressing in. The aliens were intelligent, adaptive, and patient. The threat was real. Lyra worked alongside him, though her hands were lighter in strength compared to the soldiers. Her mind, however, had become sharp, her instincts quickened by knowledge and fear. She helped train other adults, explaining the importance of observation, pattern recognition, and intuition, skills they had to cultivate quickly. That evening, Elias led her to the edge of the ridge overlooking the plains again. The sky was dark now, the twin moons casting silver light over the settlement. Far off, faint glimmers moved against the stars. Alien vessels, countless in number, approaching silently but deliberately. "They're here," Elias said, his voice low. "We don't know if they'll attack immediately or if they're still observing, but they're aware of the colony, they know it exists, and soon they'll decide whether to strike." Lyra's hands rested protectively on her belly. "And if they do?" "Then we fight," Elias said, his eyes firm. "We adapt, we survive, that's what humans do, and our child, the next generation, will carry the strength we need. This is the moment we've been preparing for." The nights that followed were restless. The colony remained on high alert. Scouts reported alien vessels moving in tight formations, sending signals that human sensors could barely decode. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to strengthen defenses and develop contingency plans. Elias coordinated every effort, sharing his knowledge from the war and his secret mission. Lyra observed the child growing inside her. The subtle changes, the reflexive movements, the tiny hints of strength, it was all there. She could feel it. This child was not just hers, it was the embodiment of humanity's hope, the first to carry the traits that could ensure survival. One morning, scouts reported a sudden spike in energy readings. Alien vessels had entered the outer perimeter. They were no longer distant observers, they were close. Their movements were deliberate, scanning the colony, testing the defenses. Elias immediately called for a strategy meeting. Colony leaders, soldiers, and engineers gathered in the central command hub. "They're intelligent," Elias said. "They're assessing us, but they are not invincible. We have to stay calm, observe patterns, and respond with precision. Panic will destroy us faster than any weapon." Lyra stood beside him, watching the maps display real-time positions of the alien ships. "We can't just wait for them to make the first move," she said. "We need to be proactive." Elias nodded. "Exactly. We'll simulate attacks, draw them into predictable patterns, and protect the civilians. Everyone will have a role. This isn't just survival, it's strategy, adaptation, and intelligence working together. Humanity isn't helpless." Over the next few days, the colony ran simulations. Small skirmishes, strategic retreats, energy grid tests, and rapid response drills became routine. The people grew stronger, faster, and more confident. Even those who had initially feared the aliens now understood that preparation and courage could make a difference. Lyra trained daily, learning combat tactics and observation skills. She found a rhythm in it, a purpose she had never imagined. Her child's presence gave her focus, a determination to survive and ensure the future. Every movement, every lesson, every decision mattered, not just for them, but for the generations that would follow. Elias worked closely with the engineers, modifying energy grids, reinforcing shields, and developing new tools that combined human ingenuity with insights from alien technology he had studied during the war. Each improvement increased their chances of surviving the inevitable confrontation. One evening, while reviewing data, Elias noticed a pattern forming in the alien movements. "They're testing us," he murmured to Lyra. "They're trying to see how we react." "Every probe, every maneuver, they're learning," Lyra frowned. "Then we need to be unpredictable, show them humans can adapt, that we're not easy to read." "Yes," Elias agreed. "And that's what we'll do. We'll fight smart, not just hard. Humans survive because we learn, we adapt, we endure. And that's exactly what we're going to do." The first real sign of confrontation came when an alien probe entered the colony's outer perimeter. It moved silently, scanning, analyzing, sending signals that human sensors struggled to interpret. Elias and Lyra observed it from the ridge. It's testing defenses, Elias said. It's small, but it's intelligent. Watch closely. Lyra watched as the probe circled the perimeter, moving methodically, almost like it was calculating every risk. It's learning, she whispered. Yes, Elias said, and we have to stay one step ahead. We can't just react, we have to anticipate. This is the moment we've been preparing for. The probe made a sudden movement, descending toward the colony's energy grid. Elias immediately gave orders to activate defensive protocols. Shields flared, energy barriers strengthened, and the probe was deflected without damaging any infrastructure. Lyra exhaled in relief, though her heart raced. That was close, she said. Elias nodded. Too close, but it's a start. They've seen our capabilities. They're learning, yes, but so are we. Every encounter gives us information. Every challenge makes us stronger. The days became a cycle of observation, preparation, and minor skirmishes with alien probes. Each interaction taught them more about the aliens, methods, intelligence, and weaknesses. The colony became a hive of activity, each person contributing to survival. Children learned drills, adults refined strategies, and Elias and Lyra worked tirelessly to coordinate it all. One evening, as the moons rose over the colony, Elias and Lyra returned to the ridge. The alien vessels were now visible against the starlit sky, far in number but moving slowly, deliberately. They're testing us, Lyra said quietly, seeing what we can do, how we react. Yes, Elias replied, and we're showing them humans are not weak. We're adapting, learning, preparing. This is the first step, the first real confrontation, and we will survive it. Lyra rested her hand on her belly. Our child, it will be ready for what comes next. Elias looked down at her, pride and resolve in his eyes. It will, and humanity will endure because we don't give up. We fight, we adapt, we survive. That's who we are, that's what makes us strong. Outside, the alien vessels moved like shadows against the stars, watching, waiting, calculating. Inside the colony, humans prepared, trained, and adapted. The first signs of confrontation had begun, but the fight had only just started. As the night deepened, Elias and Lyra held each other, drawing strength from one another. The child inside Lyra was a reminder of everything worth fighting for and of everything humanity could become. The aliens would not find a weak or helpless species here. They would find humans ready, united, and determined to survive. And in that quiet moment beneath the twin moons, hope burned brighter than fear. Humanity had faced impossible odds before, and it would do so again. The first battle had begun, but the war for survival and the rise of a new generation was only just starting. The colony woke to a tense quiet. There was no laughter, no chatter in the streets, only the soft hum of energy grids and the distant mechanical vibrations of ships preparing for confrontation. The alien vessels were no longer at the perimeter. They had arrived, hovering silently above the settlement like a dark shadow, watching, calculating. Elias moved swiftly through the central command hub, checking each station, observing the colony's defenses. Soldiers and civilians were at their stations, shields active, weapons prepared. The air was thick with anticipation, but Elias kept his voice steady. Everyone stay calm, observe, respond, adapt. We've trained for this moment. Remember, humans survive because we think, because we endure, because we do not give up. Lyra stood beside him, her hands resting lightly on her belly. The child inside her had grown stronger, movements more defined, as if already aware of the danger approaching. She drew a deep breath and looked at the soldiers and engineers, seeing the fear in their eyes. "We will survive," she said softly, and the words carried a quiet confidence that seemed to ripple through the room. The alien ships began to move. They didn't attack immediately. Instead, they circled the colony, scanning, probing, sending signals that human sensors barely decoded. Their movements were precise, coordinated, and intelligent. Elias studied the patterns closely. "They're testing us," he said. "Every maneuver is a calculation. They want to see our weaknesses, our reactions. We must stay unpredictable. We must adapt." Suddenly, a probe descended toward the colony's energy grid. It moved faster than any simulation they had run. Shields flared as defensive systems activated automatically. The probe was deflected, but its presence was a warning. The aliens were no longer observing, they were preparing for an assault. Elias turned to the command center. "Teams Alpha and Beta deploy to the perimeter. All civilians remain in shelters. Observe and report all movements. We fight smart, not blindly. Every action matters." Lyra helped coordinate the civilians, ensuring that those who were not trained in defense were safe. She moved quickly, calmly, and the people followed her lead. There was fear in their eyes, but also trust. They had seen her grow in strength and wisdom over the past months, and now she guided them with purpose. The first wave of alien drones struck the outer perimeter. They were small, fast, and intelligent, avoiding barriers and testing defensive responses. Humans responded with calculated precision. Shields, energy pulses, and rapid-fire defenses targeted the drones, neutralizing many before they could cause damage. Every action was measured, every movement deliberate. Elias observed, analyzing patterns, predicting movements. "They're learning," he said. "But so are we. Humans adapt faster than anything else in the universe. Remember that. Every engagement gives us an advantage." Hours passed, the battle intensifying in small but meaningful skirmishes. The aliens had strength and intelligence, but the humans had ingenuity, resilience, and a willingness to take risks that the aliens could not predict. Each time a drone approached, it was met with a coordinated defense that grew stronger with each encounter. Lyra felt her child move, more insistently now. It was as if the life inside her responded to the tension, to the energy, to the fight. She realized then that this child was not just her child. It was a symbol, a spark of the next generation, the embodiment of humanity's future. Elias noticed her expression. "They're learning too," he said quietly. "Not just the aliens, but us, the humans inside this colony. Every one of us is stronger than we were yesterday. That's what makes us dangerous." The alien ships made their next move. Larger vessels descended, firing energy beams that struck the outer walls. Shields held, but cracks began to appear in weaker areas. Humans countered with precision strikes, targeting vulnerable points on the ships, exploiting gaps they had observed in the aliens' patterns. Lyra assisted with coordinating defenses, relaying information between squads, adjusting strategies in real time. Her mind was sharp, her instincts quick. She realized that the child inside her was already influencing her thoughts, her reactions, guiding her in subtle ways. The enhancements Elias had spoken of were real even at this stage. As the battle continued, Elias and Lyra noticed a new pattern. The aliens were not just attacking, they were testing for leadership, for decision-making, for intelligence. They seemed to anticipate human responses, but not perfectly. There were small errors, gaps that could be exploited. Elias turned to Lyra. "This is it. The moment we've been preparing for. They think they control the battle. They don't. We will use what they cannot predict. Humans are adaptable. We survive because we think, because we plan, because we act with purpose. And now we act together." He initiated a coordinated countermeasure. Energy pulses redirected, drones lured into traps, shields synchronized to create alternating openings. The aliens were forced to adjust, to react to human unpredictability. Each move human made disrupted their calculations, their precision, their advantage. Lyra watched, amazed and proud. "We're making them hesitate," she said. "Yes," Elias replied. "Every human here is a force multiplier. Every decision matters. The aliens may have technology and intelligence, but we have resilience, adaptability, and the will to survive. And that's more powerful than anything they can bring." Hours stretched into the night. The colony's defenses were tested to the limit, but humans, guided by strategy and instinct, held firm. The aliens realized that this settlement was not an easy target. Every assault met with resistance, every strategy countered with adaptation. At one point, a large alien vessel broke through the outer shield. Its energy weapons struck the ground, creating fissures and fires. Elias led a small team, including Lyra, to neutralize it. They moved quickly, using knowledge gained from prior engagements, exploiting the aliens' predictable responses. Energy pulses overloaded the vessel's systems, forcing it to retreat. Lyra felt a surge of hope. "We can do this," she said, her voice strong despite exhaustion. "Yes," Elias replied. "Humans survive because we refuse to surrender. This is what makes us extraordinary, and soon it will be clear to them. Humanity is not to be underestimated." The battle continued into the early hours. The aliens began to retreat, their coordination faltering under the constant pressure and unpredictability of human defense. They had expected weakness, hesitation, fear, but what they encountered was ingenuity, courage, and relentless adaptation. Lyra and Elias stood together on the ridge, watching the alien ships withdraw into the distance. The colony was battered, fires burned in some areas, but the humans had endured. The first confrontation had been survived, and humanity's strength had been proven. Elias placed a hand on Lyra's belly. "Our child," he said softly, "already carries the future. And this is just the beginning. We've survived and will continue to survive. Humanity will rise from this, stronger than ever." Lyra nodded, tears in her eyes. "We did it. We survived together." "Yes," Elias said, "together. And the next generation will carry this strength forward. Our child will lead humanity into a future where survival is not enough. We will thrive because that is what humans do." As the suns began to rise, casting golden light over the damaged but resilient colony, the people emerged from shelters. Children ran into the streets, laughing despite the chaos. Soldiers checked defenses, and engineers began repairing what had been damaged. Life continued and humanity endured. Elias and Lyra watched from the ridge, their hands intertwined. They had faced the unknown, confronted intelligence beyond their own, and survived. The enhancements in their child were a promise, a symbol of what humanity could become. Lyra rested her head on Elias' shoulder. "It's over for now," she said. "For now," Elias agreed. "But humanity will always face challenges, and we will always rise. That is our nature, that is our strength. That is why we endure, why we adapt, why we survive." The colony, though scarred, stood as a testament to human resilience. The battle had tested them, but it had also shown their potential. And as the twin suns rose higher in the sky, the first rays of light fell upon a new generation. The child growing within Lyra, carrying the strength, intelligence, and hope of all humanity. In that moment, Elias knew the truth that had guided him through years of war, secrecy, and fear. Humans were extraordinary. Not because of technology, not because of numbers, but because of their will, their adaptability, and their courage in the face of the impossible. The aliens had come, humanity had fought, and humanity had survived. Elias turned to Lyra, his eyes filled with determination and hope. "This is our legacy, our child, our people, our future. We will face whatever comes next, and we will endure." "That is what it means to be human," Lyra smiled, holding his hand tightly. "Then we will endure together." The suns rose fully over the colony, bathing the settlement in light. Fires from the battle still smoldered, but hope burned brighter. Humans had faced the unknown, met it with ingenuity and courage, and had survived. And somewhere in Lyra's womb, humanity's next generation stirred, carrying within it the promise of a future that no force, no intelligence, no alien threat could extinguish. The stars above glimmered, silent witnesses to the triumph of resilience. And the colony, battered but unbroken, stood ready to face whatever came next, because humanity never surrendered, never gave up, and never stopped fighting for survival. Elias and Lyra stood together, their hands entwined, hearts aligned, and eyes fixed on the future. Humanity had risen. Humanity had endured, and humanity's story was just beginning.